Political analysts say DCP's emphatic victory in yesterday's Ol Kalou by-election may be the clearest indication yet that President William Ruto has lost his once formidable grip on the vote-rich Mount Kenya region, with some arguing that the race to unseat him from State House has now truly begun. The analysts contend that the president faces an uphill task rebuilding support in the region ahead of next year's general election, despite having secured nearly 2.9 million votes there in 2022, almost half of the more than 7.1 million votes that propelled him to the presidency. David Mudoka reports.
Throughout the 2022 presidential campaign, every visit William Ruto made to the Mount Kenya region was marked by enthusiastic crowds, warm receptions, and an unwavering belief that he was the leader best placed to champion the region's interests. That is why when Kenyans went to the polls on August 9th, 2022, voters across the country's largest voting bloc turned out in huge numbers, handing Ruto nearly 2.9 million votes from the 10 Mount Kenya counties, a decisive contribution that ultimately carried him to State House. 4 years later, however, the political landscape appears to have shifted dramatically. In Thursday's Ol Kalou parliamentary by-election, UDA candidate Mushina Nyaga, backed by President Ruto's camp, suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of DCP's Sami Kamau.
Kwa sababu katika kila mchaguzi lazima kuwe na mshindi, na ningeweza kuchukua nafasi hii kukongratulate Sami Kamau kwa sababu yeye ndiye aliyebuka mshindi siku ya jana.
Few anticipated the scale of the victory. Ngotho garnered 35,440 votes, while Nyaga managed only 5,450, turning what many expected to be a tightly contested race into a one-sided affair. Expectations had been for a fierce battle to the very end, particularly after UDA mounted an elaborate, high-octane campaign, deploying senior government officials and party heavyweights to the constituency. The campaign also featured the distribution of mattresses, gas cylinders, shoes, and other household items, drawing accusations from critics of voter inducement and raising fresh questions over the IEBC's conspicuous silence, despite electoral laws prohibiting bribery during campaigns. And if the distribution of household items had already thrust the campaign into the national spotlight, Deputy President Professor Kithure Kindiki and Head of Presidential Special Projects and Creative Economy Dennis Itumbi were among the senior government figures who personally joined the push for the UDA candidate.
Who is this? Huyu sasa ni nani? Nikamnyorosha, ni kweli si kweli? Amrenda rifaa.
Geoffrey, this is my response to you. Na pepeta tu ball. Vile nakupepeta huku my friend, na watu wa Karao wanakupepeta hivi. Wamesema hiyo story yako iwache tu, wanakupepeta.
Despite their confidence, the outcome defied UDA's expectations and has now raised three critical political questions. First, was Ol Kalou merely an isolated by-election, or does it reflect a deeper political realignment in Mount Kenya and an erosion of President Ruto's once formidable support base?
Yeah, the mountain shifted, and what was remaining was a confirmation.
Well, it's an indication that people are not happy with the president. It's not so much a shift to Gashagua's side. It was never an issue of Gachagua, although he is very good.
Public Service Cabinet Secretary Geoffrey Ruto disagrees, insisting the president still commands substantial support across the region.
We don't care about the results. Hiyo kura inapigwa leo Ol Kalou ni ya wao watu ya Mount Kenya West. wapige vile wanataka kupiga. The result of Ol Kalou will not interfere with our decision kama Mount Kenya East to support William Ruto 2027.
You can't say that UDA will not be concerned about what is happening in the mountain. The Mount Kenya West has more numbers than the East. But largely Mount Kenya West also influences how the East votes in the presidential election. Is their bigger brother.
The second question is whether President Ruto can realistically reclaim Mount Kenya before next year's general election. Political analysts argue that the region has historically demonstrated a tendency to move as a bloc once the political tide shifts. If that pattern holds, they say yesterday's result could mark the formal beginning of what the opposition has branded the one-term campaign, making it considerably harder for the president to recover the millions of votes that formed the bedrock of his 2022 victory.
If there is any moment in the history of our country that one term has become a reality, is out of Ol Kalou results. If there was any doubt that William Ruto is not going home, Ol Kalou has answered that question.
The final question may be just as consequential. If UDA could not retain Ol Kalou despite the weight of incumbency and a high-profile campaign, what does that mean for the party's MPs across Mount Kenya who will soon be seeking fresh mandates from the same electorate?
Since Kangata the other day shifted and said, it's not very nice to go and find some new home, political home, and he thinks that Sifuna's place is not bad. He's not alone.
David Muthoka, NTV.